there is such a creature in the world. They were discovered by a few people, but it has not been confirmed to exist. We refer to this group of creatures as an identified organism, UMA for short. Hello and welcome to the UMA video series. Well known, walking upright is one of the hallmarks of human emergence. It's what sets us apart from other primates. Important features. In derivative zoology, scholars will distinguish one from the other. It can also walk upright. And suspected intelligent animals, called cryptozoites or cryptids, also known as savage or Bigfoot, a close relative of humans who may have survived to this day. It's also the most fascinating thing about beauty here. Today, the topic I want to share with you is from this broad category, the forest people of East African folklore. Valuable. The name Aggegui. This is from Kulia, Tanzania, Renhawacha family, the native language used. But because this branch of language is extremely complex, and the same language, there will be certain gaps between different tribal pieces. So, I couldn't find what it meant. Aggegui is often described as a whole, a brownish or reddish-brown dwarf, covered with thick hair, height between 4 to 5 feet, walk upright like a human, living in East Africa, including Tanzania, Mozambique, and deep in the forests of places like Kenya. Missing. Extremely rare. Reports of sightings of this creature, and written records. Most are concentrated in the early 20th century. 1937, British Monthly, Discovery Series Popular Knowledge Magazine Volume 18. I saw an article called Africa. Article on Mysterious Beast. The author of the article, he was a British colonial administrator at the time, William Zikin Temple. That's where we were in Mgwana before. Recorder of the main events mentioned in the works of the period. Skins in Africa. Participated in the investigation of 3 unknown organisms, including the previous Mgwa, southern enemy of western Kenya. And then there's the theme of this issue, Aggegui. And Aggegui. It is also the only thing he claims to be true. Mysterious creatures I have seen. In the text, he describes Aggegui, described as a furry dwarf. The original painting looks like this, Aggegui, a hairy little people. It is said that they, lurking on the west side of the Umber Plain, in the Nubidi forest. I was sent to the area a few years ago. Go on a formal hunting mission. As I waited in the glade for one, when giving to the beast, I saw 2 small animals with brown fur. Out of the dense forest on the side of the clearing, disappeared into the bushes on the other side. They are like small people. It's about 4 feet tall, walking upright, covered with auburn hair. The local hunters I worked with. I opened my mouth in horror. He said it was a turtle. A lifetime. Small Changmao people who may not be able to see once. I'm desperately looking for them, but in the end, in the almost impenetrable forest, got nothing. They could be monkeys, but certainly no ordinary monkey. It's not a Phi, not Yo, not Saxo. It's not Tanzania. Any other roars that have been discovered. What are they? The natives of the local village told me something. Strange stories about them. For example, if someone, in Turubir with a gourd in the valley garden, and a bowl of food, the dwarfs would take the food. They were plowing and weeding at night. To express gratitude. I believe these may be myths and legends. But the little brown man I saw, it's real. They may not have been discovered yet. After the article is published, the public's message to careful consideration, mixed reviews, but more criticism and ridicule. Pretty soon, in the same series of magazines in 1938 the following year, a similar sighting was published again. The news comes from a man named John Cuthbert Borg's English winemaker. After seeing the report on Ziking Temple, Right to Discover magazine, and recounts an encounter he had in 1927. Here's what it says. My wife and I were on a Japanese cargo ship. Fly along Pu Shudong, sailing off the coast of what is now Mozambique. We are close to land. With a 12x magnification telescope, can clearly see objects on the ground. It's a sloping beach. There are thinning bushes growing on it. Dozens of scraps are operating there. Judging by their movements, they are hunting, pick up crabs and shells. Among them are 2 pure white phi-phi. This phi-phi is very rare, but I've heard it before. As we observe, 2 little brown things come out of the bushes together. In the middle of Fifi, I'm sure they're not known monkeys. But it should be the same. Otherwise they will disturb other waste. They are far away. We can't see very well. But these little human-like creatures. It's about 4 to 5 feet tall. Elegant upright posture. And I was thrilled. Because they are obviously not something I have heard of before or any beast you've ever read about. Then a hunter friend told me. He and his wife, and 3 other hunters flying among the squirrels. I have also seen a family of 3 with similar animals, through the clearing of the bushes. The locals loudly forbade them from shooting. 2 years of consecutive events, it has attracted the attention of many scholars. Bernard Hugh, the father of mysterious zoology, Professor Jormans, in the book Low Middle Unknown Creatures written in 1955, 2 other possible related events were also mentioned. The first issue of Records, from East Africa in November 1924, Journal of the Natural History Society of Uganda, an author named Cook claims that, in Kenya, east of Embu Station, 15 miles of Embry Plains, the melon stands nearly 6,000 feet tall, in Bangbak Mountain. According to the information I found, this place may be due to age issues. The name is slightly different. It should refer to Current, the tallest mountain in the forest reserve, Mount Jianangongbai at 5,920 feet. Cook said, the natives of Ministry and said, they're inhabited by herds of bison and a small red human race. They have a very high sense of territory. Translator for section in Old Sam, he vividly describes his experience. Once, when he and some locals climbed near the top of the mountain, a cold wind suddenly blew around. And then they were attacked with stones. But I can't see the enemy who steals the stone. In between their hasty retreat. He looked up by chance. Old Sam said with certainty. He saw dozens of little red people, standing on the high ground of the sparrow throwing stones and waving gestures of resistance. Until today, even the bravest honey gatherer. I don't dare to venture into the mountains easily. The second issue is recorded from 1940 by British professional hunters, Roger the Gold Digger, in African Nubie by Cornet. In the book, Kennett recorded his African guide Ollie. Tell a story. Here's what it says. Have you heard? The little people who live in the horse house forest, they are not as good as monkeys than those uncivilized savages. They live and behave like monkeys. Immediately after, Ollie recounts an encounter with his father. One day in the early years, the old man was on the slopes of Lignet Hills, drive the sheep to the pasture, when he followed a stolen cow. The bloodstains left behind, when you come to a cave, held hostage by dwarves. When he came to his senses, he was startled. He found himself has been attacked by a group of strange little creatures, surrounded. Then he told Ollie that the Mawu are inferior to the Pygmy in the forest, because you can't see their tails. But their behavior, like a monkey swinging on a forest tree. Their skin is very white, like a lizard's belly, but the face and body are covered with long black hair. They're almost like monkeys. Don't even know the long hair on human hands, yes, to them, create a threat. The above is about Aggegui. All relevant eyewitness records. Not like the Karanoro we talked about before. Aggie's image tends to be more of a small Sasquatch. For Aggegui, Professor Jormans, 2 are mentioned in the book. Possible theory. The first, by a guy named George Sandra, residents of Rwanda Oolong. He thinks the so-called little people may be pure, not Manchu, because they are almost no better than the rumored little people. How tall and the skin is light brown. This point of view, supported by Professor Hugh Wilmans. The latter believes that, although today, purebred Bushmen, driven to the Kalahari Desert, but they were ubiquitous. A very large area. Their language. It also affected the Zambezi River, all the regions of South Africa, plus their diet and lipid habits. It also matches some dwarf legends. But bare and hairless skin represents them. Can only become one of the archetypes of legend. Then Professor Holmans also raised concerns. Small people like you, Aggegui. The most controversial conclusion. He believed that these diminutive primates, possibly a descendant of southern government officials, what we now call the ancient southern plains, generally refers to the entire southern Paleozoan genus. This creature, living in Shangshan City and Africa during the early renewal of the early hominidae. The genus Homo is considered modern ancestors of the genera Pandanus and Kenyans. According to the fossils discovered today, most southern Archaea species are small and slender. The height is about 1.2 to 1.4 meters. Males are larger than females. Its brain size is similar to that of modern chimpanzees, ankle orientation and human ruins. It means he was a pioneer of both races. Professor Heilmans believes that almost all existing studies. It shows that the ancient southern plains had a certain degree of wisdom. Then in the face of cutthroat competitive pressure, they should instinctively look for a safe haven for survival, to hide from the stronger ancient humans. They're like the Pygmy of East Africa, to escape the invasion of the Maasai. Obviously, those dense forests are the best places. Eventually developed a kind of intelligence, energetic, race of upright walking villains. And the reason why they can coexist harmoniously with waste. This could be due to the social instincts of primates. This theory, also won by American science writer Leigh Willie's approval, but Scottish biologists, Professor Ivan Sanderson leans more towards Aggegui, is a difference from the Bushmen and more primitive African miniature peoples. He believes that although in the long history, there must have been countless ancient humans, ethnicity and Asia within the source, wandering through the mountains and forests of Africa. But we don't need to dig deep into the ancient South. The original theory explains them. We have to recognize that, so far, all over Africa, there are still true primitive peoples. They obviously has been enslaved by some tall black race, or hunted for centuries, but still survived. Those who are not enslaved must be more cautious, good at concealment. The Sultan in the west and the Ben in the east, the disciples seem to insist that creatures like Aggegui are also human. But they are more primitive than the Bushmen, even older. In fact, the red-haired little people who walk upright in the entire list of derived animals. It's not uncommon, especially in Africa. In 1986, Professor Sherwin Mans, in the 5th issue of the Journal of Occult Zoology, Derivatives that have received attention, the animals were classified as a whole, and classify African-derived people into large and small categories, including Sansandria beings in the west, Kakandakari in the center, Diklo society in the south and so on, but similar to the little people of Aggegui. 26 are listed. They have some. It's based on ancient legends from individual tribes. Some come from oral reports from local hunters. But the biometrics in the descriptions are much the same. I personally think, these creatures, the probability of existence is relatively high, at least higher than some of my online works. Orc-type creatures, and locals who live on the edge of the jungle all year round. The ability to distinguish between stars and feathers. I think it's still worth believing. This could be an undiscovered phenomenon. Even after years of evolution, new primates that start walking upright. Or the truth, as Professor Hugh Willman said, it is one of the descendants of the ancient southern plains. But anyway, the truth about Aggegui remains a mystery to this day. We don't deny the mysteries. I will never stop exploring. So face the position. I also hope that every friend in front of the screen, don't worry, bold guess, rational thinking, just a few questions. Okay, that's the last sentence. The unknown is always greater than the known. This is also the charm of Yuma. This video is here. Thanks for watching.